Kavadlo.com, and I'm super excited today to have on the call Al Kavadlo. How's it going today, Al?
Good. What's up? It's good to be here.
Did I pronounce your last name right, Al?
Kavadlo, yeah.
Kavadlo. Okay, cool, man. Awesome. Well, so for people who don't know you, Al, I want to kind of give people a 50,000 mile view of who you are and what you're trying to teach the world.
Well, basically, I've been a personal trainer for about 10 years, and over that amount of time, I've gradually gotten more and more interested in body weight training, calisthenics, and gotten away from a lot of the conventional kind of stuff, weights and machines that you see at gyms. And that's pretty much the message that I'm spreading is that you don't need to have any fancy equipment or lift weights. I mean, if you're into that, that's cool. I don't want to turn people off from doing that. But a lot of people feel like that's the only way they can get strong. And I'm just trying to show people that there's a lot of other ways to build strength besides just going to the gym and doing the conventional weightlifting.
Yeah, and so you're well known as a guy on YouTube who started doing the bar workouts, started doing kind of the ghetto park workouts, if you will. How'd you get started in that?
It's just one of those things, I guess, partially being in the right place at the right time, being here in New York City when a lot of that stuff was starting to get going. I was around as it was happening and excited to be a part of it. And, while I was seeing other people making those videos on YouTube, I started realizing, hey, I want to get in on this too. I just started my blog around that time, and there was a lot of different things going on. I was still kind of trying to figure out what I was going to do that was going to be unique, to me to make myself stand out. And that just kind of was something I was into, and there was interest in it, and it just kind of grew from there. You give the people what they want. If people respond well to something, then you do more of it, right?
Yeah. Well, one of the things you did differently with your videos on YouTube was you seemed to take less of a bragging, look at me approach and a little bit more of an educational approach. Why did you do that?
Yeah, well, a few things. One, coming from the personal training background, wanting to be a coach and putting the spotlight on the clients is always more important than making it about you. So that was definitely an issue, why I wanted to just not just show off, but to instruct other people. But it's also, my personality. I'm not a show-offy type of person. I mean, I definitely have that side to me to a certain extent. But I'm a nice, friendly, welcoming person, and that's something that was so important for me in building my reputation as a trainer. Was just so many beginners are intimidated by fitness, and especially the type of workouts that we're talking about, like the pull-up bar stuff,
Right.
can be really, overwhelming for people in the beginning. So I wanted to demystify it a little bit and show people like, hey, this isn't something to be intimidated by. This can be fun, and you should do it if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. So for people who may not be familiar with like calisthenic movement progression, so on and so forth, can you give us kind of like a start view, and then we'll dig in a little bit more on how they can use that in their training? So what is progressive movement calisthenics?
Well, the whole idea is just based on this concept that you take movement patterns and you can scale them in either direction, make them simple all the way down to, like a push-up, for example. The most basic beginner's push-up is against a wall,
Right.
where you're almost totally upright, just pushing yourself in and out, and then gradually you can work towards lowering your angle from being more vertical to being more horizontal. And then beyond that, you can elevate your feet, you can do them on one arm, you can do claps and stuff. So you have this general movement pattern, this pushing pattern, and you have this whole big spectrum of ways you can apply it for anybody from beginner to more advanced. And that's basically the idea. We have several basic fundamental movement patterns, and there's the same movement patterns that come up in any modality of training. You have squatting, you have pushing, you have pulling. I mean, those are the three most fundamental. And
Right.
then, with the pushing and pulling, you can have, overhead push as opposed to push up and front push, and overhead pull, and then, a pull in the horizontal plane also.
Sure.
So you take those movement patterns and then you can scale them in either direction pretty much infinitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for people who are listening, let's say like, they're stuck at like a pull-up. They're not able to get a pull-up. Can you give us some downward scales and some upward scales just so they can know it as an example?
Yeah, pull-up is, one of the exercises that I love the most because you get so much bang for your buck out of it.
Right.
Such a great exercise for the entire upper body. But like you said, a lot of people can't do one yet. So I always tell people it's still worth it to have a pull-up bar because you can start for a total basic beginner. I just get people hanging in the bottom position. just to build up the grip strength and build up a little endurance in the chest and the shoulders and the lats just to hold that position. Can be a challenge for a beginner. And then from there, instead of holding in the hanging overhead, you try holding the top position to chin up. You either, have someone boost you to get up there, or you can step off of a step or a bench and try to hold it, and then you try to lower yourself down slowly. And
Right.
then, enough of that eventually leads to pull-ups. And then when you can get to 15, 20 pull-ups, then we can start talking about muscle-ups and one-arm pull-ups and all the other stuff that's out there on the advanced end of the spectrum.
Sure, absolutely. So, when we're doing, working on more complex exercises like one-arm pull-ups, you can follow that same exact progression, can you not?
Yeah, I mean, the basic idea, I mean, some of the specifics for a pull-up progression or a push-up progression are going to vary a little bit, but yeah, the basic idea of starting from the most simple variation and building up to a more difficult one through manipulating leverage. So with the pull-up, there's a lot of different ways you can start a beginner. You can start, like I said, with just hanging on the bar, but you also might have them in concurrently in the same program do some assisted pull-ups where you're either spotting them by lifting them up or putting them in some sort of band that can make it easier. Where we talked a second ago, I mentioned the pulling in the horizontal plane can sometimes be a little bit easier for beginner because
Sure.
you don't have to support your whole body weight. You can kind of keep your feet rested on the floor like a body weight row. Sometimes we call that an Australian pull-up. But
Sure.
yeah, there's a lot of different. There's no one path that's the path that everybody has to follow, and that's part of what I love about progressive style calisthenics. Also, is it's a very pliable sort of personalized modality.
Because you can spin it different directions, right? You can go one direction with it, or you can go another direction with it, kind of.
I always like to use the analogy. If a visitor was coming to New York and they wanted to visit Times Square, which is one of the most famous parts of the city, and they said, "Hey Al, how do I get to Times Square?" Well, I can tell them to take the train, I can tell them to take the bus, I can tell them they could walk, they could take a taxi. They're going to get there eventually, but there's a lot of different paths, and that's kind of how it is with strength training. If
Sure.
you want to get strong, there's not only one way that you can do it.
Sure. Sure. So you mentioned from the start, so you're really passionate about specifically the body weight exercise side of things. Where do you see body weight exercises and weight training fall in a spectrum of what people should be doing?
Well, I don't think people should be doing things unless they enjoy them and unless they're getting something positive out of it. So,
Sure.
weight training is something that, like I said, I don't have any problem with weight training. I think it's great. I did weight training myself for a lot of years when I first got into the strength world, and it's great for people who are into it. I just personally started to get kind of burned out on it, and it stopped being as fun for me, and it started to almost feel like a chore, like something I had to like make myself do. And then the body weight training, once I started to get more into that, it had more of a playful vibe for me. And it became less of like, all right, I got to drag my ass to the gym, and more like, cool, I get to go and play with these cool, fun movement patterns that I just want to mess around with.
That's awesome, Al, because you know what? Way too many people stop working out because they get bored with the lame routines they're doing in the gym and stuff. And progressive body weight exercise is one of the funnest things you can do because there's always something to work on. So that being said, if somebody's a complete beginner, where would you start them? Like, do you still take clients and do you work them through body weight progressions like this?
Yeah, I still take clients one-on-one, and yeah, I mean, I'm more concerned if I'm going to work with a client, I'm more concerned with their attitude than what
Sure.
their capabilities are right now. So anyone who's, serious about putting in the work and being process oriented and not just like, oh, I want to learn how to do this cool move so I can show off or whatever, but people who are really dedicated to the practice of it, you know, from a raw beginner to someone more advanced, we all can learn from a coach. And I take on people of all levels. But like
Sure.
I said, I just don't have a lot of patience anymore for working with the kind of client who wants to just come in and has a very unrealistic expectation for how much work is going to be required on their end.
I feel you, man. I just actually got rid of my personal clients recently, and I kept a few really great personal clients for a long time. But
Mhm.
every once in a while, somebody would come in and say they want to train, and I would take them through a month worth of training, and I was like, I don't want to train this person anymore because they just clearly didn't want change. They wanted somebody to give them a magic pill, right?